They told us it was impossible. That humans and Elarin couldn't bond, couldn't resonate, couldn't love. They had charts, ancient laws, 1,000 years of genetic models screaming don't touch. But then I touched her hand. And the world shifted. It started with a spark. A moment. A breath. The kind of mistake you only realize was fate when it's too late to stop it. Now there's something growing inside her. Something that isn't just a child, it's a question the old world can't answer. A promise. A threat. A beginning. My name is Kael Verran. I was a scientist, a xenobiologist, a man with rules. But this is not a story about rules. It's a story about what happens when two species break the one law that kept them apart, and decide to rewrite the rest. I knew three things when I landed on Voluna 3. 1. The air was breathable but had just enough fungal spores to give you a headache if you didn't pop an anti-reactive every morning. 2. The wildlife was suspiciously quiet, which usually meant it was either hibernating or watching you from trees that weren't technically trees. And 3. Under no circumstances, ever, should a human make physical contact with an Elarin. Naturally, I screwed that up before the week was over. To be fair, I didn't know she was Elarin at first. She didn't exactly announce herself with glowing symbols or a name tag that read, "Hi, I'm from the species that will get you imprisoned if you flirt with me." She just looked like a woman taller than most, pale blue skin, silver white hair that caught the afternoon light like thread-woven starlight, and eyes that made you forget to blink. I found her halfway through a biodiversity run in Sector C19, somewhere between weird glowy moss patch and carnivorous vine cluster. She wasn't supposed to be there. And, to be brutally honest, neither was I. You see, the research contract from Earth's Xenobiological Institute was extremely clear. We were here to observe ecological recovery after Voluna 3's seasonal biosurge, not to engage with local Elarin settlements, who had very politely, but very firmly, requested minimal contact. Study the moss, map the thermal anomalies, log the gene drift indexes, they told me. Keep your hands to yourself. But then the moss under my feet gave way because of course it did, and I tumbled 6 feet down a soft incline that ended in something that might have been a natural ravine if it weren't glowing slightly and humming like a nervous orchestra. I was trying to climb out, one knee scraped and scanner pack half buried, when I saw her standing above me. She wasn't glowing. The forest was. She just looked alive in a way nothing else around me did. "Are you hurt?" she asked. Not in Galactic Standard, not even in Elarin High dialect. She spoke in a quiet, precise version of Old Terran English. My mother tongue. And like an idiot, I responded without thinking. "I've had worse Tuesday afternoons," I said, wincing as I pulled my leg free. "But if you're here to help, I won't complain." She tilted her head, studying me like I was a slightly dangerous but not entirely uninteresting mushroom. Then she offered her hand. This is the part where a smarter version of me, one who remembered the third thing from the start of this story, should VE backed away and activated emergency comms. But she looked human. More than that, she looked sincere. And I was tired, bleeding, and not exactly in the best decision-making headspace. So I took her hand. The moment we touched, the air cracked. Not literally, I didn't hear thunder, but it felt like something split down the middle of the world. My skin tingled with a kind of electric pressure, like I'd grabbed a charged rail. Her eyes flared wide, and her pupils dilated until her irises became rings of bright lavender light. Then she yanked her hand back and stepped away like I'd burned her. She stared at her palm, and for a second I could see faint lines of bioluminescent threading coursing up her forearm like veins filled with light. "Gods," she whispered, more to herself than to me. "It happened." "What happened?" I asked. But she was already walking backward, vanishing into the glimmering underbrush without another word. "Great first impression, Kael. You shook hands and triggered an interspecies crisis." I spent the next hour getting back to base, limping like I'd wrestled a small boulder and lost. When I got back, I did not, in fact, report the incident. because there was no checkbox on the debrief sheet that said accidentally soul bonded with local alien royalty. So I filed the day as minor terrain instability. No notable encounters. A lie, but I figured I'd earned one. The next morning, they came for me. Not in suits of armor, not with weapons drawn. Just a single representative of the Elarin Council, flanked by 2 cloaked guards who made a silence so heavy, it throbbed in the air. "You are Kael Verran," the representative said, voice like wind over glass. "You have violated the Crystal Pact." "The what now?" Before I could form a coherent sentence, they'd placed a stasis collar around my neck, non-lethal, mildly humiliating, and escorted me from my lab module to a glider that looked like it had grown out of petrified bone and starlight. We flew over the forest canopy in silence. I didn't ask questions. At that point, I figured anything I said would just make things worse. Or stupider. Probably both. They took me to a structure embedded in a cliff face that rose above the forest like a jagged tooth. The architecture was unsettling. Organic in shape, crystalline in texture. Every surface refracted the sky in ways that didn't follow physics as I understood it. I was brought before a semicircle of robed Elarin elders, who looked as if they'd been carved from frost and memory. In the center sat one figure who didn't wear a robe, but a mantle of silvered armor laced with vine-like circuitry. Her eyes, sharp and unmoving, studied me with a sort of intensity normally reserved for surgical lasers. "I am Counselor Syleth," she said. "And you are the first human in 217 years to initiate a soul bond with an Elarin female." Oh good, I thought. I've broken a 200-year dry spell. "I didn't know she was Elarin," I said. "She just offered me her hand." "And you took it," Syleth said flatly. A human male touching the bare skin of an Elarin maiden initiates neural resonance. A form of emotional fusion. "Nobody told me that," I said. "We assumed your kind remembered. It was the reason the pact exists." I sighed. "You overestimate how much humans read the fine print." A rustle moved through the council, shock or amusement, I couldn't tell. "Probably both." Syleth leaned forward. "What did you feel when you touched her?" "A static charge," I said honestly. "And something else. I can't describe it. Like I remembered something I'd never lived." Syleth nodded grimly. "Then the bond is real." I braced for the worst: prison, exile, being turned into fertilizer. "Instead," she said, "you will stay here under house arrest. She has requested to speak with you." "She?" "Aralei," Syleth said. "The daughter of the keeper line. And now, you're bonded." And just like that, my week got weirder than usual. There's something surreal about waking up in a bed that smells like starlight. That's not a metaphor. The room they put me in, if you can call a suspended, semi-translucent or tethered to a cliff room, smelled faintly of ozone, crushed mint, and that crisp, electric tingle you only get right before a thunderstorm. Or maybe right after a soul-bonding event with an alien woman you barely know. I sat up slowly, mostly because the floor didn't look like it was attached to anything solid, and gravity seemed to be more of a polite suggestion here than an actual force of nature. The orb swayed slightly with my movement, and I immediately regretted the motion. The bed was semi-liquid, like memory foam crossed with a waterbed designed by someone who hated stability. "Comfort is relative," I muttered. "Agreed," came a voice from behind me. I turned and found Aralei standing just inside the curve of the room, watching me with that same unnerving calm she'd had in the forest. Her hair was down longer than I'd realized, and her skin was brighter. No, not glowing exactly. More like illuminated from within. Like her blood was made of filtered moonlight. "I didn't hear you come in," I said. "I didn't want you to." "Fair. Very Elarin." I swung my legs over the side of the bed and faced her. "So. This is awkward." She blinked, slowly. "You think so? I'm in your city under house arrest for apparently triggering an ancient interspecies bonding ritual, And you're standing there looking like you just walked out of a dream I'm pretty sure I didn't consent to. Yeah, I'd rate that awkward. She tilted her head again, that same analytical curiosity. You're different from what I expected. I get that a lot usually before someone tries to sedate me. A flicker of amusement. Barely. Aralei stepped closer, but not too close. She stayed just outside what I assumed was the culturally appropriate radius for not accidentally soul-merging again. I asked to speak with you, she said, because I need to understand what happened. I raised an eyebrow. I was sort of hoping you could explain that part to me. She sat, cross-legged, on a nearby platform that sprouted from the wall like a blooming petal. What do you know of Elarin resonance? I scratched my jaw. Well, prior to yesterday, nothing. Now? I know that touching your skin triggered something between us. I felt connected. Like you looked at me and saw more than me. And I saw something back. What did you see? A forest, I said. Not the lunas. Different. Taller trees. And a river that ran upside down. It was only a second, but it felt old. Familiar. She went still. That was my childhood grove, she said. The memory you accessed was mine. I froze. Wait, that wasn't just a vision. She shook her head. When resonance begins, emotional proximity allows for partial memory imprint. I must have been unguarded. Well, I'm sorry I rummaged around in your childhood, I said. For what it's worth, it was beautiful. Silence stretched. Then she said, this shouldn't be possible. That's the general theme of my entire career? No, she said. I mean between Elarin and human. The original Crystal Pact was based on hard genetic data. Our physiologies were deemed incompatible for resonance. And yet, I said, here we are. Glowing and remembering each other's playgrounds. She frowned. This changes things. Yeah. Like my job, my visa status, and the likelihood that I'll be disassembled for science. I don't want that, she said quickly. I asked them not to harm you. That's comforting. We sat in silence for a bit. The orb room swayed gently in the breeze, and the outside light filtered through crystal veins in the wall, casting prismatic patterns across her face. I watched them shift like living tattoos. Then she asked, do you feel it still? I hesitated. You mean, the connection? She nodded. I closed my eyes for a moment and reached inward, not meditating, just checking. Yes, I said. It's faint, like a scent you can't place, but it's there. You. She looked down at her hands. Her skin shimmered. Stronger now. And getting stronger still. Is that bad? She didn't answer. Instead, she stood and walked to a panel in the wall that unfolded like a lotus and revealed a thin, crystalline strand. She plucked it from the wall and handed it to me. This is a bios hard, she said. We use it to store resonance patterns. It may help you understand what we risk. I took it, unsure what to do. She touched the edge and activated it. And then I saw it. Not with my eyes, not exactly. More like someone played a full sensory memory directly into my nervous system. I saw two beings, one human, one Elarin, standing together in a grove of silver roots. They touched. Their skin pulsed with light. Then, chaos. Energy rippled outward like a shockwave. Trees withered. Ground cracked. And from their contact, something was born. A hybrid. Neither Elarin nor human. A child of too much power, too little control. It screamed once and the forest died. The vision ended. I blinked. My hands were shaking. What was that? I asked. The last known attempt, Aralei said. 217 years ago. They tried to form a union. The result was catastrophic. The child lived 3 days and nearly wiped out an entire ecosystem. I swallowed. So that's why the pact exists. She nodded. It was meant to protect both sides. From love. From resonance. From each other. I let that sink in. Then I asked the question I'd been avoiding. Are we going to repeat that? She looked at me, eyes glowing faintly. I don't know. Great. So what now? I asked. Do we meditate until it goes away? Wear gloves forever? Break up from a relationship we never technically started? Aralei smiled faintly, a rare thing, like moonlight finding a crack in a cave. I don't think it works that way, she said. Once resonance begins, it either completes, or consumes. I stood up. Well, I vote for completing. Whatever that means. But preferably without destroying forests or incinerating cities. She stepped closer. Then we need to understand each other. Fully. That sounds intimate. She met my gaze. It is. Oh boy. Here's something they don't tell you when you sign up for a high-clearance xenobiological research mission. You might fall in love with someone whose skin lights up when she thinks about you. Or maybe fall in love is premature. Technically, I didn't fall. I was gently shoved down a neural waterslide of unavoidable emotional entanglement. Semantics. The point is, I couldn't sleep. Resonance, as it turns out, doesn't care about your circadian rhythms or your need for personal space. It doesn't shut off at night. It hums quietly, but insistently in the background of your thoughts like an emotional tinnitus. And if the object of said resonance is sleeping a few rooms away in a crystalline structure hanging from a cliff, your brain helpfully fills in every empty second with sensory replay of the last time you touched her. And how she glowed. Literally. Not poetically. I'm not being cute here. Her skin, especially around her collarbons and shoulders, started emitting faint pulses of violet blue light. I saw it happen when she stepped close that last time. Her eyes locked onto mine, the air got heavier, and her bioluminal pathways lit up like someone had flipped the switch on a very delicate circuit board. Which, of course, made me wonder, if we resonated once by accident, what happens if we do it on purpose? This, I assumed, was the kind of question that got people killed. Or promoted. Or exiled. Possibly all three. I didn't intend to find out that night. I was too busy pacing the floor of my guest chamber or containment suite, if you were being honest about the situation. The Elarin hadn't technically imprisoned me, but they'd made it clear I wasn't going anywhere. The walls shimmered with passive scan fields, and the door only opened when an authorized Elarin passed nearby and mentally permitted it. Yes, mentally. Elarin tech runs on bioresonance. Of course it does. I'd given up on sleep and was halfway through reconfiguring my field tablet to bypass their low-tier security nodes when the wall pulsed and Aralei walked in without knocking. Not that doors here came with knockable parts. You're awake, she said. You too, I replied. Insomnia, or just a flair for the dramatic? I sensed you were unsettled. Right. You can feel that now. She nodded and approached, her steps smooth and silent. She wore a different outfit than before, still minimalist by human standards. A short, tight-fitting wrap of silver and violet material that left her shoulders, neck, and upper chest exposed. Elegant, beautiful, and scientifically inconvenient. My thoughts went places they weren't supposed to. You're glowing again, I said, trying to sound clinical. I'm aware. She paused. It intensifies when we're close. Good to know, I said, shifting my weight. Should I back up, or lean in? Aralei stepped even closer. Do you want the bond to progress? She asked. That shut me up. She looked up at me, face unreadable. You don't have to lie. I'll feel it either way. I let out a slow breath. I'm not lying. I just don't know what I want yet. I didn't plan for any of this. Her expression softened just a fraction. Neither did I. But it's happening. We stood there, suspended in a quiet that wasn't really silent. The walls whispered faintly with the thrum of Elarin infrastructure, and somewhere deeper inside the city, I could feel the pulse of an energy field that wasn't entirely mechanical. Everything on this planet was alive in some way. Including, apparently, my own emotional wiring. I broke the silence first. What happens if we complete the bond? Aralei's gaze didn't waver. Our neural pathways will align. Memory, emotion, sensory imprint. We'll experience pieces of each other. Permanently. That's a hell of a first date. It's not a date, she said. It's resonance. It's sacred. It's irreversible. Any side effects I should know about? She hesitated. You might change. Internally. Subtly. Or not so subtly. Your mind will adapt to accommodate shared cognitive structures. You may start thinking differently. Define differently. More like me. I blinked. So, you're saying I'll become partially Elarin? Emotionally, yes. Perhaps neurologically. That's a lot to take in. I know. I stepped back and rubbed the back of my neck. And if we don't complete the bond? She took a breath. Then the feedback loop will fracture. One of us will suffer dissociation. Neural instability. Possible cognitive failure. I froze. Wait. That wasn't in the brochure. There is no brochure? Of course not. I sat down on the edge of the knot bed, trying to process that. Bonding was irreversible. Avoiding it was lethal. Neat little pair of options, that. Why is this happening now? I asked. If human and Elarin aren't supposed to resonate, why did we? Aralei came and sat beside me, close but not touching. I have a theory. I'm listening. You're not like the others. Well, thank you. That sounds like a nice compliment right before you tell me I'm dying. I mean it biologically. Your genome, it's been altered. I turned to look at her. Excuse me. I scanned your blood. Quietly. You exhibit traits that shouldn't exist in baseline humans. Elevated synaptic echo. Polyvector empathy response. You're receptive. My mouth was dry. You think someone engineered me? Possibly. Or evolution took a step forward without asking. That wasn't terrifying at all. We sat in silence again. Then, before I could talk myself out of it, I reached out and took her hand. Her eyes widened, but she didn't pull away. The moment our skin touched, the air shifted. I felt warmth. Not temperature, but something more abstract. A pull. Like falling inward. The world around us faded, and I wasn't just seeing her, I was remembering her. Through her own eyes. I saw a tall silver tree bending in wind that didn't exist. I felt sunlight on her shoulders and the weight of expectation pressing on her like gravity. I tasted a fruit I'd never eaten, heard a song in a language I didn't speak, and understood viscerally what it felt like to grow up watched, judged, alone. I gasped and let go. Aralei was trembling slightly. Her glow had intensified, and her pupils had dilated until her eyes were nearly white. You saw it? She asked. I nodded. You were lonely? She looked away. I didn't expect that, I said. No one does. I didn't know what to say. So I didn't say anything. I just sat there and let the silence return. Eventually, Aralei spoke again. If we do this, Kael, if we complete the bond, we may become something neither species has ever seen. A new life form. A new way to exist. I stood. Then maybe it's time we stop being afraid of it. She looked up at me, hope flickering behind her eyes. Then come, she said. There's something I want to show you. I had exactly 3 seconds to decide whether I was hallucinating or just underdressed for the metaphysical experience that was happening in front of me. Let me set the scene. After our little hand-holding neural fireworks display in my containment suite, Aralei led me out of the cliffside orb chambers and down into what she called the Rootway, a crystalline tunnel system beneath the Elarin city that pulsed with slow light like the veins of a slumbering planet. There was no security escort this time. No guards. Just her, me, and a sense that reality had quietly stepped aside to let something else take over. She said she had something to show me. I expected a data archive. Maybe a fancy glowing tree with historically significant moss. I did not expect a grove that opened into a skyless dome of living glass, lit from within by the memory of stars. The air shimmered. Not from heat, but resonance. We were deep underground, but it felt like standing on a mountaintop with the wind pressing against your skin and whispering things you weren't supposed to understand. And in the center of it all, a single plant. I use the word plant loosely. It looked like a flower built by someone who had only ever read about biology through badly translated poetry. Its petals were as white as my shoulders, glassy and semi-transparent. The colors changed every few seconds, shifting through shades I didn't know had names. The stem pulsed with bioluminescent waves. The whole thing radiated heat, but not physically, emotionally. Like being in the presence of something alive and listening. "This is the bloom," Aralei said beside me. Her voice was low, reverent. "It is what remains of the first resonance." "The first, what now?" "The first bond between our species," she said. "Centuries ago. Long before the Pact. When Elarin and humans lived openly, freely. Before the child." I stepped closer. The bloom didn't react. But my pulse did. "Wait," I said. "You're telling me this flower is, what, a historical artifact?" "It's alive," she said. "Part of it still holds the genetic echo of that union. It survived the collapse. It's been studied, mourned, and forgotten. But it still remembers." I looked at it again. This time I swore it shifted toward me. Only a fraction, but enough to raise the hair on the back of my neck. "You brought me here, why?" I asked. "Because we're becoming like it," Aralei said. "And we need to know what that means." Before I could reply, the bloom opened. It didn't bloom the way flowers do on Earth. It didn't unfold gently or gracefully. It pulsed once like a heart, then flexed outward, releasing a cloud of microscopic particles that shimmered like dust in a beam of sunlight. I coughed instinctively, but the particles didn't enter my lungs. They bypassed my body completely and went straight into my thoughts. And suddenly I was there. Not here. Not underground. But in a memory. A memory not mine. A woman with olive skin and a scar on her temple stood in a field of gold, reaching out to an Elarin male with dark purple skin and long white hair braided down his back. They touched hands. Smiled. Cried. Then the sky broke. I saw lightning. Shrieking. The earth shook. The child they had a child screamed once, and the world bent around the sound like a soap bubble folding in on itself. Life collapsed. Forests died. The sun dimmed. The child had been, too much. Too new. Too powerful. And then it was over. I collapsed to my knees, gasping. Aralei was beside me in seconds, catching my shoulder, steadying me. "You saw it," she said. "I saw everything. It's why they fear us," she whispered. "Why they fear what we could become." I looked up at her. Her skin was glowing again, more intensely than before. The light wasn't soft this time. It was sharp, bright, like cracks forming along her skin from the inside out. "Aralei," I said. "Something's happening to you?" She looked down at her arms. Her expression didn't shift, but I saw the realization in her eyes. The glow was following patterns now spreading in fractal lines across her shoulders, down her ribs, curling at her wrists. "This is earlier than I expected," she said softly. "What is?" "The bloom phase," she said. "The final stage of resonance. If it completes, I become something else. Something else. Not fully Elarin, she said. Not fully me. And I don't know if I'll survive it. That's when I did something stupid. Again. I took both her hands in mine. Then let me help. She looked at me, eyes full of light and disbelief. You'd do that? Even now? Knowing what happened last time? I smiled, a little crooked. I'm not him. You're not her. And that child isn't ours. Not yet, she whispered. The silence that followed was full of things we weren't ready to say. And then the alarms started. Not blaring. Not mechanical. Just a low harmonic pulse echoing through the rootway, like the planet itself had cleared its throat. The dome's inner walls shimmered. Aralei went pale. They know, she said. Who knows? The council, she said. They've been monitoring the Bloom chamber for resonance signatures. We triggered them. Perfect, I muttered. Do we run now, or? The wall behind us rippled. Not opened, rippled, like water being disturbed from the inside. A figure stepped through. Tall, armored, with biocrystal gauntlets and a facial mask like a shard of black ice. Counselor Syleth. I warned you, Aralei, she said. I told you the cost of defiance. Aralei stepped forward, defiant. You don't understand. It's different this time. No, Syleth said. It's exactly the same. I got between them before I even realized what I was doing. Look, I said, raising my hands. I know I'm not your favorite person right now. But maybe, just maybe, this isn't about repeating history. Maybe it's about learning from it. You believe love will protect you? Syleth said coldly. No, I said. I believe knowledge will. And maybe a little reckless optimism. Syleth didn't laugh. Pity. You will come with us, she said. Both of you. You'll be contained, studied, and if necessary neutralized. Neutralized, I repeated. Charming. Aralei's glow flared. If you touch him, I will resonate fully. Right here. Right now. Syleth hesitated. I don't know if it was a bluff. I don't think Aralei did either. But it worked. Syleth raised a hand. Very well. One cycle. You have until the next moonrise to prove that what you carry is not a weapon. And then she was gone. Aralei turned to me, breathing hard. Her skin dimmed, but the glow didn't vanish completely. You okay? I asked. No, she said. But I will be. I reached up and touched her cheek, gently. The glow pulsed once under my hand. Warm. Alive. We've got one cycle, I said. Let's make it count. Let me say, for the record, that fleeing a biologically active crystalline city while your maybe girlfriend is slowly transforming into something unknown due to an interspecies neural resonance is not how I imagined my week would go. But by now, I should have known better. We left the Bloom chamber in a rush. Aralei didn't say anything for the first 10 minutes, which is usually a sign that something really bad is about to happen. She moved quickly, gracefully, with a kind of urgency that suggests the place you're leaving is about to erupt into bureaucratic hellfire. I followed close behind, out of breath, pulse thudding in my ears, mostly trying not to trip on the glowing vine paths that seemed to know where we were going even when I didn't. They'll trace us, I said. They already are, she replied. But I've disabled 3 of the internal signature tags in your blood. For now, you're off-grid. Good. Love when someone hacks my bloodstream without asking. I asked, she said. You just don't remember? I decided to let that one slide. Eventually, the tunnel gave way to open air, and we emerged onto a stone ledge overlooking the Silver Woods. And yes, that's what they actually call it. It's not poetic license. The leaves shimmer with a natural chrome-like sheen, and the canopy flashes subtly with bioelectric pulses at night. Think of a forest crossed with an aurora and injected with mild paranoia. This way, Aralei said, leaping down onto a lower platform like a cat with a personal vendetta against gravity. Right behind you, I muttered, completely lying, and took the descent in 3 clumsy hops that nearly shattered my knees. Survival is not graceful. It's just persistent. We pushed into the underbrush. The air changed. Cooler. Still. Like the forest was holding its breath. What exactly is the plan? I asked, after the 5th near miss with a branch that smelled like menthol and slapped like a scolding parent. There's an old symbiosis station deep in the woods, Aralei said. Abandoned. Off-grid. Shielded. We'll be safe there. For how long? A day. Maybe 2. Depends on how badly Silith wants your head. Mine? I thought you were the one glowing like a lighthouse. She's afraid of you, Aralei said without turning. You're the variable she can't predict. Well, that's comforting, I said. I've always wanted to be someone's unpredictable apocalypse. We walked in silence for a while. Eventually, the shimmer of the city behind us disappeared, swallowed by the dense silver canopy. The forest had its own sounds, subtle chimes from the wind brushing metallic leaves, deep pulses from the root clusters, and occasional clicks from animals that apparently had sonar-based languages. Aralei, I said after a while, you're changing. I know. I mean, physically? She slowed, turned to face me. Her skin had taken on a deeper hue, still blue, but now threaded with veins of living silver. Her eyes were wider, more luminous, and her hair had started to lose its gravity, drifting slightly as if underwater. I can feel the resonance stabilizing, she said. It's settling into my body. Rewriting things. Preparing. For what? For the birth of something new? I swallowed. You mean the child? She hesitated, then nodded. Not yet. But soon. The potential is already forming. I leaned against a tree that glowed faintly at my touch. Okay. Breathe, Kael. Deep breaths. You've had worse. Probably. She stepped closer. This frightens you? No, I said. This terrifies me. But that's not the same thing as regret. Aralei didn't say anything. She just placed a hand on my chest, over my heart. Her fingers were warmer than they used to be. Something's changing in you too, she said. That's probably the stress. No. It's deeper. I can feel it when you think about me. Your neural patterns are shifting. You're beginning to resonate back. Wait. I thought I was already resonating. Only one way. Now, it's mutual. Which meant, I guessed, that I was also becoming something other. Not Elarin, not human. Something in between. Something undefined. I'm not ready for this, I admitted. Neither am I, she said. Are we doing it anyway? Yes. Of course we were. We moved again. The trees grew denser, taller, stranger. Some of them seemed to bend toward Aralei as she passed, as if drawn to her resonance field. Animals not quite birds, not quite bugs followed us at a distance. I started seeing faint flashes of light in the underbrush, not like eyes, but like sensors. The forest was watching. Eventually, we found the station. Or, more accurately, what was left of it. A dome grown from composite bark stone set at the base of a ravine. Covered in moss, slanted from erosion, half submerged into the roots of a massive tree with a trunk the width of a small building. Aralei pressed her hand to the entry node. It blinked red once, then reluctantly opened with a sigh of stale air. Inside, it was dark and musty. Lights flickered overhead, old but still functional. Biotech likes to hang on long past its expiration date. This used to be a field lab, Aralei said. Long before the pact. Before the retreat. I dropped my pack and surveyed the place. Dusty consoles. Overgrown nutrient tanks. A sleeping mat discolored from time. It felt like the inside of a forgotten memory. You ever been here before? No. But my mother had. She helped shut it down after the last human Elarin collapse. Small universe. She sat on a bench and pulled her knees up to her chest. I watched her for a moment, uncertain of what to say. Then I said it anyway. If this thing inside you, if it grows, what do you think it will become? She looked at me, eyes full of stars. Hope. That shut me up. Because despite everything, the politics, the fear, the neural overlays and potentially illegal gene convergence, I believed her. We sat like that for hours, saying nothing, just listening to the hum of the old station and the forest breathing outside. I fell asleep with my back against a console, one of Aralei's hands curled loosely in mine, glowing faintly like a promise that hadn't yet been broken. There are moments in your life when you know you've stepped over a line that can't be uncrossed. It doesn't come with fanfare. No ominous music. No dramatic lighting change. Just a quiet, internal click that tells you the world you knew is over, and the one you're standing in doesn't have instructions. That moment hit me at sunrise, sitting on the floor of an abandoned biotech station, holding the glowing hand of an alien woman whose biology was actively rewriting itself because of me. I'd like to tell you I had some brilliant, scientific reaction. Maybe some calmly delivered monologue about genetics and ethics. Instead, I just watched the soft blue shimmer tracing along her spine and thought, this is what awe feels like. And terror. And something dangerously close to love. Aralei was still asleep, if you could call it that. Elarin rest cycles are closer to meditation than sleep. Her breathing was shallow, steady, and every few minutes her skin would pulse with light in slow waves that reminded me of tidal patterns. And inside her, something else pulsed. It didn't have a shape. Not yet. But I could feel it. The resonance between us had deepened in the night. Even without physical contact, I could sense her thoughts brushing the edge of mine. Her memories whispered around the corners of my awareness, fragments of childhood rituals, half-formed images of crystal gardens, echoes of parental disappointment. And something new. Something not her. A third pulse, delicate and faint, beating in harmony with us both. I sat up straight. She stirred. Her eyes opened slowly, dreamily, and for a moment they looked almost human. Then the irises shifted, silver burning through blue. You felt it, she said. I nodded. It's there. Aralei sat up, cross-legged, one hand over her belly. It began forming last night. I wasn't sure if it would stabilize. But it's adapting. Fast. I swallowed. Are we talking about a fetus? Not exactly. Not yet. More like a singularity of potential. But yes. The structure is biological. Resonance-based. Hybridized. So, I said slowly, you're pregnant with something that might not even have a genome. She tilted her head. It has one. It just doesn't follow the rules you understand. Wonderful. My accidental alien child was already smarter than me. What do we do? I asked. We observe. And prepare. It will choose its form soon. Wait, choose. She nodded. The resonance bond gives it access to both of us. Not just physically. Psychologically. It will build itself in response to us. No pressure, I muttered. Aralei stood and moved toward the nutrient console in the corner. The station's interface lit up automatically, recognizing her biofield. She ran a finger across the surface, and holographic glyphs bloomed in the air: data, diagnostics, environmental scans. I could only read about 20% of it, but what I saw made me sit up straighter. You're not just stabilizing, I said. You're accelerating. Aralei looked at me. It's feeding off our bond. And the closer we are emotionally, the more complete it becomes. So, if we fight, it dies. Possibly, she said, too calmly for my liking. or it mutates in unpredictable ways. Neat, I said. So now we're not just dating weary quantum co-parents of a reality-bending entity? She smiled faintly. You make it sound dramatic. I think it is dramatic. We ran more tests over the next hour. Aralei let me scan her neural field using my portable analyzer, which was now barely functioning because Elarin bio-emissions tend to fry standard human tech once they cross a certain threshold. The readings were beyond anything I'd seen. Synaptic density had doubled. Hormonal cycles were in flux. Cellular regeneration was accelerating. Her entire system was in flux, reorganizing itself like she was preparing to evolve in real time. And somehow, I was along for the ride. Kael, she said suddenly, come here. I walked over. She took my hand without hesitation this time. The moment our skin touched, the world shifted sideways. We were in a memory. Not hers. Not mine. The child's. I couldn't explain how I knew. But I did. We stood in a field of light, the ground made of shifting symbols that changed as we looked at them. The sky overhead shimmered like liquid thought. And at the center of it all, a figure. Not male. Not female. Not Elarin. Not human. It was tall. Lithe. Skin the color of storm clouds lit from within. Hair like living fire. Its eyes glowed with a soft, pulsing gold, and it looked at us with a mixture of curiosity and deep, aching loneliness. You are the first, it said. Its voice was, both of us. Blended. Harmonized. Too close. You called me. I answered. I am not born yet. But I remember you. And then it reached out and touched our foreheads. The memory shattered. We were back in the lab. I was on my knees, gasping. Aralei had collapsed beside me, her breathing erratic. I saw it, I whispered. Me too. We sat in stunned silence. Outside, the silver woods rustled with the weight of secrets. Finally, I asked, did we just meet our future kid? Or a piece of its projected consciousness, she said. Either way, I think it wants to exist. Yes, she said. But it doesn't know how. I leaned back against the console. What if we're not enough? What if we mess this up? Aralei turned to me, her voice quiet but steady. Then it will carry our mistakes like all children do. And find its own way forward. We stayed there, breathing together, heartbeat by heartbeat. Outside, the wind picked up. Somewhere in the canopy, the glow shifted from silver to blue. Something was coming. We didn't know if it was the council. Or something worse. But inside that quiet, abandoned station, for one fragile moment, we were just two people sharing the impossible weight of hope. And somewhere in between us, a new life listened. You can always tell when a forest turns on you. It's not dramatic, no thunder, no sudden shriek of birds into the sky. It's quiet. Too quiet. The trees stop swaying like they are holding their breath. The wind folds in on itself. And you realize, with a kind of dread that only shows up at 3 a.m. or just before a public execution, that something out there is watching. And not the good kind of watching. Not the wow, neat biologist, let's see what he discovers. No. The we have orders and a neural stun rifle with your name on it kind of watching. They've found us, Aralei said. She didn't sound surprised. She rarely did anymore. Her voice had become a little deeper, more resonant, like something else was speaking alongside her. I didn't argue. I just started shoving diagnostic gear into my pack. The station had served its purpose, scanning the developing resonance pattern, confirming the child's projected waveform, giving us a few hours of sleep. But the moment she said I knew we weren't staying another minute. How close? I asked. Close enough. Vague and comforting, as always. We were halfway out the dome entrance when the shimmer hit. It started at the edges of my vision like the air itself had decided to get all pixelated. You know that old sci-fi movie trick, where teleportation comes with a blue ripple and an ominous hum? Yeah, turns out that wasn't so fictional after all. Cloak field breach, Aralei said, grabbing my wrist. They are already inside the perimeter. We ran. And I do mean ran. As in, full sprint through an alien jungle full of glowing vines, singing insects, and a dozen different plants that could probably dissolve your boots if you stepped wrong. Aralei moved like wind over water fluid, precise. Me? More like a sack of potatoes with a Wi-Fi connection. But I kept up. Mostly because adrenaline is magic. Also because death is a hell of a motivator. Behind us, I heard it. A low-frequency pulse followed by the click of magnetic locks. The Council's signature weapon, a constriction drone. Compact, fast, and designed to subdue without killing. Unless you resisted. Then it was more creative. Left, Aralei said. I trusted her instantly, because if there was one person who could smell tactical intent before it formed, it was the glowing, slightly terrifying woman I'd accidentally soul-bonded with. We veered into a grove where the trees grew so tightly together, even the light bent to make room. Roots shifted underfoot. I nearly ate dirt twice but somehow kept moving. The drone zipped past overhead sleek, black, no visible propulsion and looped around like a vulture that hadn't decided which carcass looked tastier. They're hurting us, I gasped. They want a controlled encounter. Probably a retrieval OP. Great, I wheezed. How thoughtful. Then Aralei stopped. Not slowed. Stopped. Dead still. In the middle of a clearing ringed by whisperthorn vines and silvergrass, she turned and looked directly at the drone. Her eyes pulsed once. The drone paused. It actually stopped mid-air. I don't mean it hovered, I mean it froze, as if it had suddenly remembered it left the oven on and forgot how to fly. Aralei? I asked, carefully. She stepped forward. The air around her vibrated, faintly. I felt it in my bones like the inside of a tuning fork trying to find the right pitch. Aralei, what are you doing? She didn't answer. The drone's lights dimmed. Its casing began to glow, not red, not blue, but the same silver-blue pattern I'd seen on her skin when the resonance deepened. Then it dropped. Just fell. Dead weight into the grass. I blinked. Did you just resonate a drone to death? She turned back to me slowly. Her skin was bright now. Not just glowing, shining. Her hair lifted around her shoulders like static cling from another dimension. I didn't mean to, she said. It responded to me. It obeyed. That doesn't sound like a mistake, Aralei. That sounds like power. She shook her head. No. It's the child. I swallowed. What? It reached through me. Controlled the drone. Not as a weapon, just to protect. That thing's not even born yet and it's already hacking military-grade tech. Aralei didn't reply. And suddenly, I understood the Council's fear. This wasn't just about a forbidden romance. Or political history. This was about control. The kind of power you can't regulate because it doesn't follow your rules. Because it's new. We have to move, I said. No. What? I need to show you something. I was about to protest when she raised a hand, and I stopped cold. Because the forest answered. Light spread out in a circle from where she stood, veins of color running through the ground, up the trees, into the canopy. Leaves turned toward her. Vines unraveled. And the air shimmered with a pulse I felt in my teeth. Then the ground split open. Not violently. It parted, like fingers opening around a secret. Beneath us, a hollow chamber. Grown, not built. Pulsing with soft light. Lined with crystalline threads that moved like veins beneath translucent skin. This, she said, is the echo womb. Sure, I said, because of course it was. Why not? It's a sanctuary, she explained. A living chamber used by ancient Elarin to complete resonance rituals when danger surrounded them. It isolates, protects, amplifies. You're saying we hide here? She stepped down into it. Not hide. Become. I looked down into the chamber. It hummed like a lullaby for gods. I'm not ready for this, I whispered. I know, she said, holding out her hand. But neither is the world. And we don't have time to wait. I took her hand. We descended. The chamber closed above us, sealing out the world. And everything changed. I don't dream anymore. Not the way I used to. Back on Earth, dreams were weird movies your brain made with too much leftover data and not enough logic. Sometimes they featured old lovers. Sometimes you were naked in front of an alien council trying to explain why your teeth were melting. Fun stuff. But in the echo womb, dreaming was different. It was direct. Immediate. Like being uploaded to someone else's stream of consciousness while still fully aware you were you. Only you had become a shared folder, and someone else had read/write permissions. It started the moment the chamber closed. The walls didn't just seal shut, they melted into coherence. Their color shifted from soft cream to a dark, radiant amber. I felt my own heartbeat sync with the pulse of the space. Aralei knelt in the center of the room, eyes closed, hands on her abdomen. I joined her. The light grew. Not brighter, deeper. Like it was sinking into our bones. Then we were gone. Not physically. We were still in the echo womb. But our minds, ourselves, were somewhere else entirely. It was like falling sideways into a new reality. I found myself standing on a flat plane of obsidian glass. Above us, stars pulsed like data points. Aralei was next to me, no longer glowing but translucent, like she'd been rendered in memory. Ahead, the figure. Not fully formed. Still abstract. Still, becoming. Its shape flickered childlike one moment, ancient the next. Genderless. Colorless. Timeless. Eyes that held the gravity of stars. It wasn't just our child. It was a junction. You have summoned me, it said. Its voice made my ears ache. Not from volume, from truth. We didn't summon anything, I said. We were trying to survive. Survival is a call. And I have answered. I glanced at Aralei. She said nothing, but her expression was focused. Calm. I looked back at the child, or the projection of what it might become. What are you? I asked. I am resonance given form. The echo of possibility. The outcome of divergence. You're very poetic for a zygote. It blinked slowly. A beat of emotion passed through the space, something like amusement. Your humor hides fear? I nodded. I'm good at that. You are afraid I will break the world. Yes. So am I. That shut me up. It walked toward us, though walk might be the wrong verb. It glided, dissolved, and reappeared closer, like movement had become optional. You are the first to love across the divide and survive it, it said. But love is not enough. You must choose what I will be. Aralei finally spoke. How? By choosing what you are willing to lose. That did not sound encouraging. Define lose, I said. We talking vacation time, or entire species level paradigms? If I am born fully, I will change everything. You, her, the council, the boundaries between species. Borders will blur. Truth will bend. The old world will not survive my arrival. I looked at Aralei. Her eyes glistened. She'd known this. Or suspected. You're telling us the world has to break so you can live? I asked. Not break, it said. Transform. But transformation requires sacrifice. I hate that word. Then choose another. Call it growth. Silence stretched across the glass horizon. Then Aralei stepped forward. "I won't choose fear," she said. "I won't ask you to be less than you are, just to make others comfortable." It turned to her. "Eyes soft? Then you will be my mother?" She flinched just slightly but nodded. Then the figure turned to me. "And you?" I hesitated. I was a scientist. A human. A man who still missed coffee and clean lab reports in a world with rules. But I'd also seen what the old systems did. What the Crystal Pact cost. What it silenced. "I don't know how to raise a revolution," I said. "But if you're going to be born, you won't do it alone. Then you will be my father." And just like that, it smiled. It wasn't a facial expression. Not really. More like an internal light flickering outward. And in that moment, I felt it fully. All of it. Hope. Terror. The weight of the future. The beauty of change. And love. Not the romantic kind. Not even the familial kind. But the kind of love that says, "I see what you are. And I still choose you." Then the vision ended. We were back in the chamber. The air had gone still. The light had dimmed. Aralei was breathing hard. Her skin now shimmered with patterns that shifted in time with mine. We were fully bonded. No going back. I reached for her hand. She took it without hesitation. Outside, we could hear the forest stir. The drones would return. The council would act. The old world would resist. But inside, a new life stirred. And it would not be silenced. The walk back to the city wasn't long, but it felt like we were dragging a thunderstorm behind us. Aralei moved like someone who had already made peace with what was coming. Me? I was trying not to hyperventilate. Between the glowing skin, the ever-deepening resonance between us, and the faint but very real presence of something unborn tapping at the edges of my perception like a kid trying to come out early, I was holding it together with sarcasm and sheer force of denial. "You sure they are not just going to shoot us on sight?" I asked. "They won't," she said. "How do you know?" "Because if they were, we'd already be dead." Comforting. Extremely comforting. We crested the ridge overlooking the crystalline skyline of Luna Prime just as the morning light broke through the upper atmosphere. The city looked like it had been carved from frozen lightning, tall spires, softly pulsing walls, the occasional ripple of a surveillance field catching the sun. It was beautiful, and cold, and now because of us terribly afraid. We walked through the outer gate without resistance. No drones. No guards. The city let us in. That's never a good sign. "I think they want a show," I said. Aralei nodded. "They want a spectacle. They want to prove that the old world still holds power." "So what do we do?" She stopped and turned to me. "We don't flinch." That sounded nice. Heroic. Empowering. It also made me want to vomit. They brought us to the Grand Hall, which I'd only seen once before during my brief and thoroughly unpleasant tribunal after the accidental hand touch that started all of this. Back then, it felt like a courtroom. Now it felt like a funeral. But we weren't the ones being buried. The council sat in a half-ring of elevated seats, each one carved from translucent alloy and etched with the old pact glyphs. They looked exactly as I remembered them: stern, regal, dressed in ceremonial robes that shimmered like oil on water. And at the center sat Counselor Silith. She did not look pleased. "You return," she said, voice like broken glass smoothed over with authority. "We did not summon you?" "No," Aralei said, stepping forward. "We summoned you?" That got their attention. Silith leaned forward. "You dare speak with authority you do not possess." "I speak as a daughter of the Keeper line," Aralei said. "And as a bearer of what none of you have the courage to face." Silith narrowed her eyes. "You mean the abomination?" "No," I said, stepping beside Aralei. "She means your future." That one landed. There was a ripple through the chamber. Not just sound. Resonance. I could feel it in the walls. In the air. In my chest. Aralei wasn't just glowing now, she was radiating. Not like a bomb. Like a signal. We bonded, she said. Fully. The echo womb confirmed it. The child is forming. Conscious. Responsive. Already aware. Syleth stood. That is impossible. The genes are incompatible. Aralei smiled softly. That was always a lie. A male counselor to the left, older, more cautious, interjected. If this is true, if the bond was successful, then the Crystal Pact was based on fear, Aralei finished. A single failure. A single tragedy. And you used it to close every door, seal every boundary. Not because it protected us. Because it controlled us. The chamber was very quiet now. Syleth looked at me. You support this? Yes. You understand the risk? Of course I do. But the risk isn't her. Or the child. The risk is pretending the old world still fits the shape of what's coming. There was a pause. Then Syleth asked the question that mattered most. Show us. Aralei nodded. She stepped into the center of the chamber, removed her cloak, and placed both hands over her abdomen. The glow was no longer soft. It pulsed in rhythm with something deeper. Something alive. I stepped forward and placed my hand over hers. The resonance hit like thunder, but it didn't hurt. Instead, it unfolded. Light swept through the chamber. Not blinding. Not harsh. But undeniable. It spread like a wave, warm, aware, intelligent. It moved through the floor, up the walls, across the seated council. And within it, a voice. Not heard. Felt. We are not your mistake. I watched as counselors flinched. Some gasped. One began to weep. We are not your failure. Syleth stood frozen. We are your second chance. Then the light receded. The silence afterward was absolute. Aralei breathed slowly, eyes closed. I could feel her trembling. Not from fear. From holding back the weight of it. Syleth sat down. We need time, she said quietly. There is no more time, Aralei said. The old world ends today. The only question is whether you'll walk with us into the next one, or be left behind. The council did not vote that day. No declarations. No verdicts. But they didn't order our execution either. Which, by my math, was progress. Later, back at the outskirts of the city, Aralei and I stood overlooking the forest where it had all started. I think we cracked it, I said. She smiled faintly. We didn't crack it. We broke it open. And now? We wait. We watch. We protect. I took her hand. And when the child comes. She squeezed my fingers. Then the real work begins. I always imagined the end of the world would come with explosions. Fire in the sky, governments collapsing, people screaming in 10 different languages while something with claws chewed through communications satellites. Instead, it came with paperwork. That's not to say the old world didn't resist. Oh, it did. But resistance in Valuna 3 didn't look like war. It looked like long meetings. It looked like 15 different Elarin factions arguing over definitions of the word resonance, over whether the child was a biological threat, a metaphysical anomaly, or just a really inconvenient reality they'd rather not deal with. The thing is, truth doesn't care if you're ready for it. It just keeps arriving. And now we had a very bright, very literal truth growing inside Aralei. We moved into a private chamber near the outer rings of the city, a hybrid space neither entirely human nor Elarin. It had the cold beauty of crystalline design, but with rough corners, patch tech, and human touches. Blankets that weren't self-cleaning. Books made of actual paper. A kettle that whistled when it boiled. Aralei liked that sound. She said it reminded her of old stories about fire. Pregnancy in a hybrid like Aralei wasn't linear. There were no trimesters. No sonograms. No cute ultrasound photos to send home to Earth, assuming anyone back home still had an email server that accepted subject line, baby with undefined genetic signature. Instead, we had light. Every few hours, Aralei would pause mid-thought, close her eyes, and a pulse would ripple outward from her chest like a sonar wave. I could feel it in my ribs, in my bones. The child wasn't just growing. It was tuning us. Making sure we stayed connected. Some nights, I'd wake up and see her standing at the window, skin glowing softly, humming a melody I didn't recognize but felt like something I should. She never told me what the song was. I never asked. Some things you just let exist. And yet, for all the wonder, the fear was never far behind. Because the council hadn't fully accepted us. They hadn't ruled against us, either. Which was, somehow, worse. They were watching. Measuring. Waiting for a mistake they could point at and say, see? This is why the pact was made in the first place. I hated them for that. Not for doubting me. I've lived with doubt my whole life, but for making Aralei carry the weight of it. For forcing her to be perfect when the entire point of what we were doing was learning how to be new. And still, she never cracked. Not when her body convulsed from a resonance spike that knocked out half the city grid. Not when the council sent a delegation of old guard purists to observe the anomaly with faces that looked carved from stone. Not even when her skin began to shift in patterns that had no precedent in either species, etchings of light that told stories we didn't understand yet. She stood in all of it like a monument to the idea that change isn't a flaw. It's the only thing that makes anything worth surviving. And then came the birth. Of course it didn't happen in a hospital. Nothing about this ever followed protocol. It happened on the cliffs. At sunset. Because of course it did. We'd gone out walking. Aralei said she felt calm. Said the air tasted ready. And then her legs buckled. I caught her before she fell. She didn't scream. She didn't even look surprised. It's time, she said. We barely made it to the base of the silverroot tree that marked the threshold between the city and the forest. The echo womb had already sealed itself days before some internal sense that its work was done. So we did the only thing we could. We let the world do the rest. She lay back against the root bed. The wind stilled. The trees leaned in. She took my hand. Her glow intensified until it wasn't just light, it was language. A message sent to every living thing tuned into the world's pulse. And then the light separated. I can't describe it any better than that. It didn't burst or split or emerge. It simply became. One moment, Aralei was whole. The next, a sphere of condensed energy floated above her chest, spinning with impossible geometry, refracting memories, and light and something else, something alive. It hovered. Pulsed. Then descended slowly to the grass beside us. And from that sphere, a shape unfolded. Not born. Not delivered. Just, realized. The child stood. Small. Silent. And brilliant. Their form shimmered between human and Elarin. Hair like sunlight through water. Eyes like storm glass. Skin threaded with the same living light that had once danced across Aralei's body. They looked at me. And I felt every decision I'd ever made compact into that single moment. You chose to stay. You chose to love. And now this exists. Hi, I said. The child tilted their head. Smiled. Hi, they replied, voice echoing with both of us inside it. Aralei reached for them, tears slipping down her cheeks for the first time in all of this. And the child stepped into her arms. For hours after, we said nothing. Just watched the sky shift. Let the universe be quiet enough to accept what it had been given. A week later, the council met again. This time, it wasn't behind closed doors. This time, The child walked with us into the chamber. And the world didn't end. It began. We didn't ask for permission. We didn't beg for approval. We simply stood as proof. The old laws were revisited. The Crystal Pact was rewritten, burned into new language, not in stone, but in code, in culture, in the collective memory of everyone who witnessed what we had made. And on the first page of the rewritten pact, Aralei inscribed one sentence, by hand, with ink made from the bark of the tree where our child was born. From fear, control. From love, change. And beneath that, my own handwriting. Signed in resonance. Not in chains. So now here we are. One human. One Elarin. One child who is neither, and both, and more. We live in a world that wasn't ready for us. But we made space anyway. Because evolution doesn't ask for permission. It just happens. And if you're lucky enough to be part of it, you don't fight it. You resonate. We didn't set out to change everything. We just wanted to stay alive. To hold on to each other. To love, even when the world called it dangerous. And now, because of that love, a new voice sings beneath the stars. They call it an anomaly. A deviation. A crack in the old foundation. But I've seen the truth, it's a seed. And seeds don't obey boundaries. They grow. We are no longer separate. No longer strangers across species or memory. We are resonance. We are the next verse in a song older than laws and louder than fear. So when they ask me what we gave up, what we lost, I tell them this. We didn't lose anything. We just stopped pretending not to belong to each other.